Welcome everyone to our session, The Future of Gaming is Accessible, at the Microsoft Ability Summit 2021. My name is Anita Mortaloni, and I will be moderating our panel today. Before we begin, we want to invite you all to engage with us by sending your questions and comments in the chat, and we will respond during the session. Today's session is about how the future of gaming is accessible. Gaming itself is a unique space in accessibility, with its own challenges, but also its own opportunities for creative potential. In this panel session, we have 4 people from different roles in game accessibility, sharing the unique nature of game accessibility, how game accessibility scales into other areas of tech, and their aspirations for the future of gaming. You may even get a few ideas for your next game to play. We will begin with a round of introductions from each of our amazing panelists, sharing who they are and their role in accessibility. As your moderator, I will start. My name is Anita Mortaloni, pronouns she, her. I'm a Caucasian woman with dark blonde hair, wearing a black shirt and a blue necklace. I'm recording from my home office in North Bend, Washington, and I'm the Director of Accessibility for Xbox, working to make it easier for everyone to discover and play the games they want by starting with accessibility. Kari, we would love to have you start.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kari Gaynor, she, her. I'm a UX design lead and accessibility champion for Turn 10 Studios for the past 3 years. I'm Asian American, in my 30s, and my hair is dyed brownish, and I'm wearing a red Gaming for Everyone shirt, and I'm coming to you from my home office in Seattle, Washington.
Welcome, Kari. Sean, would you like to go next?
Sure thing. I'm Sean Jordan, or Sean McIntyre. I'm 48, pronounced he, him, coming to you from my home office in Duvall, Washington. I have short, brown, graying hair by the day, blue eyes, wearing a pink salmon sweater in a very colorful yellow, blue, red room.
Fantastic.
I'm a product marketing manager for Xbox, who works on our original programming, events like E3, game launches, game announcements.
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
Franklyn, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm Franklyn Graham. I'm a white male with dark hair and a dark beard, and I'm coming to you from Redmond, Washington. I'm wearing a green flannel shirt. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm an accessibility user researcher. So my work is really aimed at conducting research that helps make the Xbox platform and services a more accessible experience for players.
Fantastic. And Kaitlyn, would you like to round us out?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kaitlyn Jones. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a game accessibility program manager. I'm a Caucasian woman with long blonde hair in my 20s, wearing a black sweater, and I'm recording from my home in Redmond, Washington. There's a white wall behind me with some nice plants and succulents on the shelves, and I primarily work with and help support our Xbox gaming teams to create more accessible products and services.
Awesome. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for being part of our panel today. We would like to learn a little bit more about you before we jump into those really tough questions. So our first question is, can you share a little bit about what brought you into the gaming industry and why you have stayed so long? Sean, let's start with you.
Sure thing. I've had a very well-rounded career in entertainment over the last 25, 30 years, radio, film, TV, print, etc. Gaming has always been a passion. I was a producer on a live daily TV show with a heavy focus on gaming for 8 years, right before coming to Xbox, and came on in more of a video producer role, but I've been a gamer at heart since, age 5 or 6, playing, Pug and Mogwomp and Microsoft Adventure back from the very early days.
It's great when you can bring your childhood passion into the work that you do right now. Franklyn, what about you? What brought you into the gaming industry?
Yeah, gaming has been a hobby of mine since I was a child, and I was always interested in working in the industry. I think if you had asked me through elementary school, what did you want to be, I would have said like a person who makes video games. But I didn't really realize that you could work in video games and not be an engineer. So I took a different path after I graduated with my PhD. I really looked at my skill set, my interests, and found out that they were really valuable in the video game industry. And so I found my way here, and I love it. I love working on products that mean so much to so many people, and I love making games that, make a welcoming place for everyone.
What a great story. Not everybody can say that they're doing what they said that they were going to grow up to do. Very lucky. Kaitlyn, how about yourself? Can you share about what brought you into the gaming industry?
Yeah, I've always loved playing games since a young age, like I'm sure a lot of us here. But lucky for me, my story was kind of serendipitous. But basically, when I was in high school, my dad, who's a mechanical engineer, was working with veterans, primarily with limb loss. And he was creating these custom adapted controllers for them to be able to game again. And we worked a lot with their occupational therapists. And I was like, that's so cool. I want to be an OT too, my little junior in high school self. So I became an occupational therapist, went to school for that, and then got connected over here at Microsoft. And just through seeing, the power of games to heal and bring enjoyment and connect people with friends and loved ones during rather difficult periods in their time, back when I was doing clinical work, it ultimately, brought me to the gaming industry, and being able to support that on the actual development side of things is what really has kept me here.
Starting to sense a theme that we all are into gaming really young, and it's carried through. Kari, how about yourself? What brought you into the gaming industry?
So coincidentally, I too was really into video gaming from a young age. I think I started out with the classic Nintendo and Sega Genesis systems. And then in grad school, I studied alternative design processes and how to design for social change, which sort of led up to a few grad students and myself attempting to use design to address previously unaddressed design spaces with community design partners. So for me, accessibility was a really exciting and innovative space, and there's always new things for me to learn, and I think that's what's kept me in the space for so long.
Absolutely. I always love hearing how everybody got into the gaming industry. Usually it's from starting loving games early on, but the huge diverse set of backgrounds we have in the field that ultimately contribute to how diverse the gaming ecosystem has become. So, as this is a gaming panel, what better way to start than a couple lightning rounds? We are going to ask our panelists a question, and we're going to ask them to keep their answers very, very short. And we will do a couple of these before getting into our very tough questions. So the first round is, what are some of your favorite games? Franklyn, you are going to kick us off.
All right. Well, my favorite games usually depend on who I'm with. So if I'm by myself and I'm just trying to relax, I'll usually play Stardew Valley, which is a farming simulator where you're just trying to build a farm and build relationships with other characters in the game. If I'm on a Zoom Hangout session with friends, it's usually Drawasaurus, which is a virtual Pictionary game that everyone can play on their phones. And if it's just my partner and I, it's the board game Wingspan, where you're trying to collect the most birds.
Those sound fantastic. And you're spot on. It really depends on who you're with for when you're playing the game. Kaitlyn, how about yourself?
Yeah, I really love platformer games, the ones that you can kind of just dive into and dive out, and they're, light touch and fun in nature. I think my favorite game is a game called Don't Starve. It's kind of a cartoonish survival game, but you could really customize all the difficulty levels and, how much battle engagement and dangers you want to subject yourself to. So I think that's probably my favorite thing about it.
I have not played that, but I am adding it to my list. Kari, how about yourself? What are some of your favorite games?
So I really love epic open world games like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Fallout 4 because of the immersion aspect. And then I feel like there's always something new and exciting to do. And then I really love cozy, smaller games like Spiritfarer and Atsumi Neko, mostly for the cute graphics.
Absolutely. And Sean, do you want to round us out? What are some of your favorite games to play?
Sure thing. All time, I go back to what got me into gaming. Games like Ultima 2 on my Commodore 64, Tempest on my Vectrex, games on my Odyssey system, the original Rogue on my PC. Recently, it's more mobile games that I can jump in for a minute. Star Wars: Galaxy of Heroes, Idle Champion, Slay the Spire. I also always like to get together with friends when I can. It's rare these days with these days with kids, but board games like Battlestar Galactica and whatnot, Risk.
Yep, +1 to those. You've all added a few games to the list for me to play, especially as my son and I just finished Ori, the Will of the Wisp yesterday and found the artistry and gameplay very entertaining, and the gradual ramp up for difficulty was great for learning to play that with my son. What I found interesting about some of your answers is it reflected that being a gamer isn't restricted to just video games. So for all those people out there that play on their phones like you, Sean, or Drawsaurus like Franklyn, Candy Crush, Minesweeper, or board games, you are a gamer. And I just want to say welcome to the game community. So our last lightning round, the question is, what is one thing that people may not know about our gaming industry? Kaitlyn, we will start with you.
Yeah, so I feel like the typical stereotype of a gamer is sometimes, somebody in their teens or early 20s, but according to a 2020 study from the Entertainment Software Association, the average age range of a gamer is actually 35 to 44 years old.
That is pretty shocking, and I'm sure shocks a little bit of the audience as well. Kari, would you like to follow that?
Sure. So one thing that I think that people may not know about gaming is that up to 50% or approximately 50% of gamers are in fact women, which I think points to the fact that there's an appetite for a diversity of game genres and types of games out there.
Absolutely. Another myth-breaking fact that people may not have known. Sean, how about yourself?
Sure. I mean, related to this panel, I think it's really the depth of accessibility available in games today, which is a relatively new phenomenon, whether it's features for people with low vision, contrast levels, font sizes. It seems like this is such a growing field, and it's so great to be on just on this burgeoning field.
100% agree. We have a lot of work left to do in the space.
Indeed.
Franklyn, what about yourself? What is one thing that people may not know about gaming?
Yeah, I think about the positive benefits of gaming. So gaming's associated with things like stress reduction, problem solving, increased creativity, more positive social experiences. And I think that a lot of people think of games as potentially just violent, or they think about your main first-person shooter, but there's a lot more in there.
100% agree. I think you just gave my son multiple arguments to why he should play video games way more. So if playing for games for fun wasn't enough, now we have even more reasons to go and play. And we want to make sure that everyone who wants to can play. So we are going to jump into the tough questions for the Future of Gaming is Accessible panel. Our first question, Kari, we are going to start with you. For your area, why is accessibility critical for gaming?
I think that when designing for games, it's important to keep in mind that accessibility makes games better for everyone and widens the funnel for those who can enjoy your game. For example, most newspapers are written at a middle school to high school reading level, not because newspapers are targeting children as the core reader, but so that the newspapers are readable by everyone or a wider audience. And another example of this would be that a high percentage of able-bodied gamers or folks will actually use subtitles, even if they don't necessarily have the need in the immediate moment for them. But they could also be, temporarily in need of them, such as if you're trying to keep the house quiet, but you just want to read what people are saying on the television. So I just really love the ability to solve these problems creatively.
I love the creative aspect of it. And ultimately, we want more people to play. That's what we're in the business for. Sean, what about you? For your area, why is accessibility critical for gaming?
So I'm in marketing, so I am more an aside to, I feel like the heroes that are creating these features. I feel like it is my responsibility to inform others that these features exist in the games, that games are all inclusive, that anyone can enjoy them. It is also my passion to be able to bring these games and present these games with audio descriptions, with interpretation, with localization across the globe, so that everyone can enjoy finding out about the games at the same time in the same ways, and no one is left aside.
Couldn't agree more. We want it to be very easy to find the game so you can get to playing way faster.
Yes.
Franklyn, how about yourself? Why is accessibility critical for gaming in your area?
Yeah, well, games are one of the most popular forms of entertainment in the world, and really everyone just deserves to be able to participate in those sorts of experiences and to feel welcome and seen. And as a researcher, it's really my responsibility to make sure that we're including the voices from the accessibility community, both in that research, but also make sure that people are able to participate with the tools that we use or the different ways that we're conducting research to make sure that we're able to advocate and bring those voices to the video game development process.
Couldn't agree more. It's about putting people at the center of what we do and what we create and who they're for. Kaitlyn, you are the last one for this question. For your area, why is accessibility so critical for gaming?
For me, I think given my background as an occupational therapist, our goal as OTs is to help the clients we work with be able to do the activities that they want to do independently. In the same way that our clients want to be independent in things like getting back to work or accessing their phone, we're seeing that being able to engage in video gameplay independently is right up there for such a large and growing list of individuals. Excuse me. So the more accessibility supports that exist in gaming, just the more people that can enjoy that regardless of where they're at in their gaming journey.
Absolutely. You kind of rounded it out and touched on the slogan, when everyone plays, we all win. And in some cases, we all play for different reasons. So building on the concept of enabling play, we have our next question. Can each of you share an example or two of an accessibility gaming feature that enables more people to enjoy the power of play? Sean, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, for me, in gaming, I'm very into audio descriptions and some of the features there that help people with low vision and no vision access games. Champions in this field who are gamers like Steve Saylor, Sightless Combat, who are able to play Gears 5, Halo, Mortal Kombat, all of these games and beat them from start to finish through pings and co-play. It's amazing.
I love when people finish game. It's that power of it, like accomplishment and achievement. Franklyn, what about you? What's an example of a gaming accessibility feature that enables more people to play?
Yeah, well, to build off of something that Sean just said, the ping system in Apex Legends specifically. So this is a first-person shooter game. You're teamed up with 2 other people. There's 60 players total. And I think, as you can imagine, with that many players, it requires a lot of cooperation to come out on top, right? So you need to be able to communicate where the enemies are, where you're going to go, if you need to fall back, all sorts of things like that. And they developed a really interesting system where with the touch of a button, you can actually ping all of these different things and have the system respond contextually. So if there's an enemy, you click this button, it will pop up on the screen a visual indicator saying where they are. You'll also get a text description, and then your character also reads it out loud. So all of the players in your team have all of these different levels of feedback. And I think that's a great accessibility feature for a wide range of players. So, a player like me who has social anxiety, it helps to remove some of those barriers to getting on like voice chat, right? Because I can just rely on this system. But that also carries over for people without microphones or who might have difficulty just speaking. And the same sort of thing with keyboards, right? You're removing the barriers to like text chat. And this is a system that's built directly into the game. It's just the standard. So it's ubiquitous and all the players really benefit from it.
I think you just touched on a key component of accessibility features in the solve for one, extend to many. You solve for one, and it really applies to a lot larger audience to enjoy our games. Kaitlyn, how about yourself? What is an accessibility gaming feature that enables people to enjoy the power of play?
I feel like this list is growing super rapidly, so it's hard to just pick one. So I'm going to go with talking about our recent update to the Xbox accessibility guidelines, which provides best practices and a ton of real game examples that have all of these various accessibility features that we love so much. And the guidelines kind of go over pretty much all the accessibility best practices you could think of, whether it's the size of text and elements or customizing your audio, and even guidelines and examples on how to provide accessible documentation about your game for customers with disabilities. But if I had to pick one, I guess recently we've seen a ton of development in the accessible hardware and input space, things like button remapping and all that kind of good stuff. So that's been really exciting.
I love how we can start to customize the experience to meet the person's needs. Lastly, Kari, what is a gaming accessibility feature that enables more people to enjoy the power of play?
I think that accessible trailers that are narrated and have rich subtitles are, things that really help more people enjoy your game. One of the things that someone touched upon was the ecosystem of like all of the marketing materials and looking at things that exist outside of the game. So I think that it's pretty important to think about like the overall ecosystem that the game exists in and not just looking at the game itself, although I really liked hearing everybody's in-game examples.
You are so correct. There are so many different aspects to make sure a game is out there, it's accessible, people can discover it and learn about it before the actual game play begins. Many times when people think of accessibility and Xbox, they think of the adaptive controller, and rightfully so. It's amazing. But I was impressed by it when we started listing all the examples. There were many of them that were in addition to the Xbox adaptive controller. If I had to add on mine to Kaitlyn, your comment that there's a growing number, it would be the difficulty settings, as it really allows people to play how they want to play or can play. And then it extends to people who just want to enjoy the storyline, or a new gamer, or those that want to jump in and do survival mode at the toughest possible level possible. So now that we have shared some examples of game accessibility features, let's explore the next question. What may come across as unique to game accessibility in your area, but in reality could be applied elsewhere in tech? Franklyn, we are going to have you start with this one.
Yeah, so I think the complexity of games makes them unique in terms of accessibility. So games are transmitting information through nearly all of the senses, and they're social in nature. So when we're talking about increasing accessibility in games, it's really requiring us to think about how all of those channels work both individually and as a system, and ensuring that all the things that make a game are perceptible to as many players as possible. So within the research space, it's a lot of work to make sure that we're able to replicate all of that information across all of those different channels. And I think that what's done in gaming to make these experiences available to more players is something that could be spread out throughout other areas of tech.
Absolutely. The whole idea of bringing in different aspects and doing the end-to-end and bringing it all together in a way that people can consume it in a way that is right for them definitely applies outside of gaming. Kaitlyn, how about yourself? What isn't something that is unique to game accessibility, but in reality could be applied elsewhere in tech?
I think what's really cool about games are that the software can be made to be super flexible and just provide a ton of options that players can adjust to really create an experience that works best for them. So whether it's adjusting the gameplay mechanics, like you mentioned, Anita, putting it on easy mode, or, giving yourself unlimited health and ammo, or it's other types of things like playing in high contrast mode, you could just enjoy the same game in so many different ways. And I think that's really awesome. And I hope that we continue to see this power of options and customization in more experiences outside of gaming.
100% agree. We all interact with the program, the software, the tech, the environment differently, and we want to see more of that. Kari, what about yourself? What is something that may come across as unique to game accessibility, but in reality could be applied elsewhere?
I think it's that there's not a one-size-fits-all roadmap to making an accessible game, so it really lets us push on our assumptions here and really rethink how we create features and solve design problems. Designing with intention for accessibility is a relatively new thing. So the idea of rethinking the model and potentially bringing in new types of design partners and thinking creatively rather than following a prescriptive process is really interesting to me.
And something that applies everywhere, really.
Yeah.
Sean, how about yourself? What is something unique to game accessibility that in reality could be applied elsewhere in tech?
So for me, it goes back to audio descriptions, which Xbox was the first, as far as I'm aware, to do live audio descriptions on our programming, which can be applied to the tens of thousands of people that are game streaming. And as AI advancements come along, there are several AI tools that are generating that automatically, so that it's not limited to a stream that a million people be done for a much smaller audience. Likewise with captions and interpretation. As technology advances, we are seeing improvements in what so that it doesn't just need to be a news broadcast or a trailer that has live captioning or interpretation. It can be something that anyone is streaming from their living room that anyone can enjoy.
Absolutely. It's about meeting people how they want to consume their content. So we are into the last couple questions before we end with another lightning round. What challenges do we face in game accessibility that we need to overcome to move into the future? Kaitlyn, we are going to start with you.
I would say how we better understand how to meet the needs of all of our customers. I think gaming is really amazing in the way that it draws in so many people from diverse backgrounds and life experiences. And when it comes to game accessibility, we really need to continue to invest in working with every single one of these diverse communities to ensure that we have an accurate understanding of what are facilitators for them versus what are barriers for them when it comes to game accessibility. And that can seem like a lot of people and voices to consider, but it's so important that we overcome this and just make sure every single one of these voices are heard, so we really understand how to make things the best for everybody.
It's a huge opportunity for us, really figuring out all the different ways that people play. And even one person can play differently depending on what situation they're in. Kari, how about yourself? What challenge do we need to face in game accessibility to overcome to move into the future?
Something I'd love for people to understand is that in game design, accessibility doesn't necessarily mean changing the core game experience, or nor is it at odds with the designer's vision or intent. So a subject matter expert that I spoke to once said that he doesn't want, to game differently per se. He wants to be given options, and that a game option is a form of agency for him. So it's our job to give players those options. My hope for the future is that accessibility won't be thought of as accessibility anymore. It will just be thought of as good design.
That would be my dream as well. And it's just one of the many options that are out there to make gameplay better for everyone. Sean, what about yourself? What challenges do we face in game accessibility that we need to overcome to really move into the future?
Yeah, well, for me personally, right now, it's just looking that these aren't just issues in the United States. That this is a global issue that we need to overcome. That I can go out and get audio descriptions for in English right now, but trying to find that in other languages is very hard to do. Likewise with interpretation, I can get ASL. I might be able to get JSL and BSL and a couple other forms of interpretation, but finding that on a large scale, we're doing a show coming up that we are broadcasting in 31 languages. I wish I could get 31 forms of interpretation for our broadcasts. But part of that also is just being vocal and going out and seeking this. Something like live audio descriptions was unheard of until our team was very vocal about trying to figure out a way to make that happen. It could be something that more teams could do at a more affordable level. But being that squeaky wheel, letting companies know, hey, we want this service, so that they go out and create this service that everyone can enjoy.
We should all be that squeaky wheel. And you really hit on that. It's just the tip of the iceberg that we have a long journey to go in this space. Franklyn, wrap us up on this question. What challenges do we face in game accessibility that we need to overcome to move into the future?
Yeah, so for me, I think it would be not thinking about accessibility from the beginning. We've done a lot of work in this space, but there's still more to be done. So making sure that we're incorporating the voices from the community from the get-go, that when we're designing the tools or the features, implementing them in the beginning so that we can get that feedback. And ultimately, I think of it as, making accessible design just the core component of that experience. And, accessible design positively impacts all players, and incorporating it from the beginning there really does make for a more seamless experience across the entire product.
Couldn't agree more. We want to include those voices in from the beginning and then throughout the entire cycle and get that feedback. So we know that when it ships, it resonates with the larger audience. Okay, next question. Sean, you hit on this a little bit already. If you had a magic wand, how would you describe the future of gaming? Kari, you get to start.
So I would say I would describe the future of gaming as diverse. I think in the next few years, we'll see studios hiring differently, and also lots of different types of studios popping up, which will in turn make for a lot of different games to suit various tastes, and interesting stories and characters, and a lot of attention paid to accessibility options and playstyle options.
That sounds perfect. Sean, how about yourself? If you had a magic wand, how would you describe the future of gaming?
Diverse and inclusive. From the moment you turn on a game, it should have those features that if you have low vision or no vision, that you're able to access those menus. That there is that audio right there. That that text isn't so small that you can't read what is going on the screen. And likewise, all encompassing. There are so many areas that I feel are still being left out, unfortunately.
A lot of challenges for us to tackle in the upcoming years. Franklyn, what about you? If you had a magic wand, how would you describe the future of gaming?
I'm going to say customizable. In my vision of the future of gaming, we're going to have a lot of different features and varieties of ways to change the games to really suit our play style and our needs.
That was a good one. Kaitlyn, you get to follow that answer. If you had a magic wand, how would you describe the future of gaming?
I was also going to say customizable. But yeah, I totally agree with Franklyn. Just you can use the inputs of your choice and just adjust the interfaces and mechanics the way you want, but at the same time, you're still enjoying the primary intent and artistry and design choices that the developer created, just without any of these blockers or barriers to your gameplay.
Absolutely. I would +1 all of those and probably add on that it's just easy to play, discover, and it's just easy to get involved in the amazing gameplay that is out there. Okay, last round before the lightning round. What effect has the global pandemic had on the game industry? Kari.
That's a good question. In general, I think it's making us rethink our work models. The work from home orders have made it so that the industry has been able to hire talent that previously would not have been able to work on site due to a disability. And I think that we're actually more diverse and better because of it.
Which is perfect, because that is what one of the things we mentioned on the magic wand and the future of gaming is a more diverse talent pool.
That's right.
Sean, what about yourself? What effect has the global pandemic had on the game industry?
Yeah, well, so this may be a bit selfish here, but it's allowed me to do so much more in that marketing so often comes down to the wire. News is changing the day before, but having shows that we need to do in advance that are much more virtual, that aren't so much live, it's given me the ability to spend more time and create more languages, to get full audio descriptions that aren't done live in the moment, to record some of these features, and really, it comes down to getting people to lock down on their messaging a week in advance versus a day in advance. But when it's not so sudden, it allows us to do so much more and be so much more inclusive.
That is one plus to the global pandemic, is we're getting more accessibility out of it. Franklyn, how about yourself? How has the global pandemic, what effect has it had on the game industry?
Yeah, well, on the research part of the industry, it's really moved us to just come up with the new methods for reaching people where they are. Kind of like Kari said, prior to the pandemic, much of the research that we would conduct on live products was on site in the labs. But now we have ways of incorporating the voices of just a more diverse group of people, right? So better tools for remote research, better ways to find people, and a broader group of voices.
That's fantastic. Hopefully that really extends past the pandemic when everybody starts to go back into the office. Kaitlyn, how about you? What effect has the global pandemic had on the game industry?
I think it's really brought out the power of games to connect people, and this is something that we saw way before the global pandemic, especially with the veteran populations. Gaming is something that they would do when they were deployed overseas, but play with their friends and family back home as a way to connect them and have those virtual experiences. And now this is kind of a situation that everybody is encountering, is that they can't be physically in the same room and play with their friends and family or have those experiences. So I think the pandemic has just brought about this mutual feeling of connectivity and being able to do that through games, and how important that is.
Absolutely. We're all kind of experiencing that at the same time, which is special as well. So as we wrap up, we are going to end with a few more lightning rounds. Panelists, we are looking for one-word answers and maybe a sentence to explain your answer. So get ready. What is the impact when we don't include accessibility into our games and gaming ecosystem? Kari, you get to start.
So from a dev perspective, I think lost or wasted opportunities. You as a developer are really missing out on an opportunity to innovate for your players and offer them something really fun and unique.
Completely agree. Sean?
Yeah, it's really letting people feel that they don't have a part in gaming, unfortunately. It is, there are so many untapped people who would love the games that are available out there, who either are not able to play them or also are just not aware that they can engage in them. I've been to like the American Council of the Blind convention a year or so back, and there were a handful of people, but for the most part, the people in the room did not know that games can speak to them, that they can have a part, that they can enjoy that. So it's letting them know that they have a part in the world, in these games.
Couldn't agree more. Kaitlyn, one word.
I would say disappointment. There's nothing worse than someone who just purchased a game and they're super excited to play it. And, games aren't typically very cheap and they play through a small portion and then they end up getting blocked at one point in the game and they have to, return it if they can. And they basically are stopped in their tracks from enjoying it. And, that experience for anybody is just very disappointing, I would say.
Couldn't agree more. We get to wrap up our session now. The future of gaming is accessible, and we want to extend a huge thank you to our panelists, Kari, Sean, Franklyn, and Kaitlyn, for sharing your passion for gaming, the insights, and the view of the future of gaming. And we want to thank everybody in the audience for listening and asking your questions in the chat. We look forward to hearing from you all in the future.